What's up people, hope you're having an awesome day. I'm your host Eamon Hassan and welcome back to another video here at Most Amazing Top 10. Now when people tell me we've only explored 5% of the entire ocean, it actually blows my mind, like what cool things could we possibly not know about that exist alongside of us. But then I forget about the ocean and then I start thinking about the mainland and how many things on land still remain hidden. Above the surface is a bit easier, but even under the surface there's a lot of things we haven't found yet that are just waiting for it. Obviously I can't include those things in the video because we don't know about them yet, but from the stuff we have dug up, it gets pretty gruesome. So let's just get into it. This is the top 10 scary things found during archaeological digs. Starting us off with number 10 is the claw. So back in 1986 an expedition was undertaken on Mountain Owen in New Zealand since there was a network of unexplored caves under the mountain. Yes, because exploring caves with little to no light always ends well for everyone involved. Thankfully nothing horror movie-esque happened other than them finding a few bones here and there and then a gigantic claw. And honest to God, when I saw the picture of it I was like, what the hell was living in that cave? And I hope to God it didn't have kids. Forget kids, what if its hungry cousins were nearby? Like, you're still done for either way. And I'm not even talking like a small bear claw, I'm talking 4 massive claws that were most likely attached to a dinosaur ready to steal your kids and your wife. Hide your kids, hide your wife. Now it definitely wasn't Jurassic Park 2.0, but the team managed to find 3,000-year-old remains of an upland moa, which was basically a flightless bird. Flightless or not, it could still probably tear you apart on foot. Coming in at number 9 is the caveman, and before you skip this one because you think it's just one of those basic old cavemen that we keep finding, it's not. Just putting that disclaimer out there. One day a speleologist, someone who studies caves by the way, was looking through the Lama Lunga cave network in Italy when he found the Altamura man. And I kid you not, if you have trypophobia, I really recommend not looking at this one or its pictures because it's really just very cringy. I get goosebumps just thinking about it and looking at it, and I don't want to. The skeleton of this man was covered with white bumps, as was the cave. It's like the man and the cave just became one. And I honestly don't know where one started and the other ended. What really happened was that a Neanderthal from way back when must have fallen into the cave and died of starvation. Eons later, a layer of calcium carbonate built over his remains, thus preserving them but also making you want to vomit. Basically the cave ate him and is still eating him. After scraping off a bit of his shoulder, researchers concluded that Altamura man is the oldest Neanderthal ever found. Fact of the day. At number 8 we have cannibalism. We need backstory for this one because how did they just magically dig up cannibalism? They didn't. Relax. Back in 1845 the Franklin expedition was a British voyage of Arctic exploration which went promisingly underway but ended up in disaster. On the way the HMS Erebus and HMS Terror got stuck in the ice and were trapped a lot longer than expected due to very cold summers. By 1848 the 129 men aboard the ships decided to leave and do a 1,000-mile trek to the closest trading port, which was Hudson Bay. On the way there, researchers were sure the men suffered from many things like scurvy, hypothermia, lead poisoning, etc. that could have been what caused them to leave their ships, which were essentially their only food source. Like, they packed enough food to last them 5 to 7 years, yet they still left. Something doesn't add up. None of the men survived, and even the Inuit of the area stayed away from that region because food was so scarce. After recovering around 35 bones from the area, anthropologists noticed the bones had been broken and many had cut marks indicating someone had cut the flesh from the bones, so cannibalism definitely had occurred amongst the crew. But the bones also exposed something a lot more gruesome. They also showed signs of pot polishing, which means the ends of the bones were heated in a boiling cooking pot. And that only ever happens in the last stage of cannibalism, when someone extracts the marrow from a bone to get any nutrition they possibly can. This all goes hand in hand with what Inuit eyewitnesses said they saw, which were piles and piles of fractured human bones. Filling our number 7 slot is the sewer. So I didn't know excavation could be done in sewers, but apparently it can, so a group was doing just that under a Byzantine bathhouse in Israel. After a while of finding nothing, they started coming across hundreds of thousands of little bones. And after finding nearly 100 bodies, they realized they were waist deep into a sewer that was specifically for getting rid of newborn babies. Despite doing a lot of research, no one knows the real reason all the bones are down there. Initially, researchers thought it was just for female infants, since at the time the parents of these kids would have seen girls as less valuable. Thank God we grew out of that, guys, but either way, some of the bones also belonged to male babies, so it wasn't that either. And that's how far their research went. I wish I could tell you more. So in conclusion, we found 100 baby corpses in a sewer, and we're just apparently gonna just sweep it under the rug and move on. Now at number 6 are the headless Vikings. So along a road in Dorset, archaeologists were doing some digging when they came across the remains of 54 Viking mercenaries. But the scary part was that all the corpses were headless. The group went on to record the positioning of the bones when they realized everything was conveniently in its own pile. The heads were all together, the legs and arms were arranged, as were the torsos. Initial theories were that the Vikings tried to occupy a village nearby, failed, and then the villagers came and murdered them and took some of the skulls as souvenirs. Honestly, I highly doubt this, because aren't Vikings meant to be pretty jacked and very good at fighting? I feel like they would have beat the villagers. Another more viable theory was that the Vikings may have been sacrificed in a ritual which explains the bone arrangements but has no link with the culture around the area, so you win some, you lose some. Coming in at number 5 is the Screaming Mummy. So back in 1886, Gaston Maspero, the head of the Egyptian Antiquities Service, was bringing mummies out of their sarcophagi. Side note, I love when the plural of something ends in I, it's just very amusing to me. Anyway, he came across one sarcophagus that was quite plain. The ones of queens and kings usually say very clearly who's buried inside, but this one was just a bit of a mystery. Inside, it was wrapped in sheepskin, which was seen as low class and unclean in ancient Egypt. Either way, when Gaston finally uncovered it, the corpse's hands and feet were bound together, and the person also died screaming, or so it seemed. It looked like the person had been tortured mid-death, or was buried alive, or maybe even poisoned. As sadistic as that sounds, after a lot more research into mummification, they realized that unless the jaw is strapped shut when the body is mummified, then the jaw just naturally falls open anyway. So in that regard, I guess all mummies are screaming mummies, but this person, known as Unknown Man E, was the first. At number 4 is the pit. So back in 2012, archaeologists were surveying an area in Bergheim, France, when they found around 5 acres of pits called silos absolutely filled to the brim with human bones. They uncovered 60 silos, 14 of which were filled with bones, because that's totally normal in this day and age. One of the silos just had dismembered human bones, which shows a hell of a lot of amputation took place to fill it up. Other bodies were found which had suffered trauma blows and stabbings as well. Why are we uncovering so many pits or tombs filled with suspicious dead bodies? Like, how did people not have to report this stuff or write it up back then? Like, I'm very confused. Either way, bodies of adults, children, and even infants were found and were estimated to be around 5,000 years old. Filling our number 3 slot is chemical warfare. So back in 1933, an archaeologist by the name of Robert Dumesnil was doing a dig near Dura Europa, which is where the Persians seized the Romans. This whole video is a history lesson, I love it. During the dig, he went through several tunnels and he happened upon the bodies of 19 Roman soldiers. All the bodies were positioned as if they died running away from someone or something, and at the end of the tunnel was a single Persian soldier found literally clutching his chest in his armor. After an investigation and then a re-investigation of the original dig, another archaeologist found that all 20 men died due to one of the earliest attempts at chemical warfare. The Roman tunnel was above the Persian one, so they planned to break into them from above, but obviously the Persians could hear everything they were doing. So the Persians came up with a plan to light a fire in the tunnel and throw bitumen and sulfur on the flames, which caused all of them to die. As they breathed the choking gas inside, it turned into sulfuric acid in their lungs, leaving them all dying a slow and painful death. Now at number 2 are the Polish vampires. In 2016, a group of archaeologists were doing a dig in a cemetery located in West Poland. They uncovered graves dating back to the 13th and 14th century, but it was the way the bodies were buried that caught their attention. All the corpses were either mutilated, decapitated, punctured in the spine or sacrum, pinned down from the neck, or bound. All these methods were believed to physically stop the dead from rising again, so researchers believe the locals assumed these people were vampires. One woman who died was believed to have kyphosis, a condition that gave her a hunch which could have led people to believe she was a vampire. She was buried face down and her knees were broken in various places. Another man with the same condition was buried the same way, and a third body was buried with their head between 2 big stones, and I just feel bad for this person. Most of these bodies were probably not vampires at all, but victims of cholera, and people believe the first person to die from an outbreak would return as a vampire. That's sound logic. And finally, at number 1 is the murder tomb. Back in 2009, a group of archaeologists were excavating the bottom of a prehistoric dry lake bed located in Motala, Sweden. They weren't expecting to find much since they were just doing it because the area was being paved for a new railway line, but they struck gold. I don't know if I can even call this striking gold, but sure. They ended up uncovering a stone tomb structure of some sort at the bottom of the lake, and after getting it open, discovered the skulls of 10 people. All of them were 8,000 years old, and it ranged from elderly skeletons to babies as well, so no one was spared in whatever was going on. But it gets even worse. After digging deeper, they found fragments of other skulls lodged into an 11th skull. I don't know how you would even shove skull fragments inside someone else's brain while they're still alive. This is some Hannibal ting right here. Anyway, they also found a lot of bodies that had been torched alive and that had stakes driven through them. And that wasn't even from guessing. The group literally found 2 skulls with stakes melded into their skulls. No one can think of why the murder tomb was there. Perhaps some warriors mounted the skulls of their victims onto stakes, or maybe some innocent people were killing off a vampire infestation. I have no idea. And that's it for today's video, guys. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I'm surprised at how many groups of dead bodies we've uncovered in this video, because then how many more are still buried that we haven't discovered yet? Now I'm asking the real questions, you guys. But anyway, do let me know what you thought in the comments below. As always, I'm Eamon Hassan, and I'll see you next time. Bye!